When something goes wrong in one of WA's most remote spots, help doesn't always come by road. It often comes from the sky. This was the case for Greg Robbins, a keen surfer from Margaret River who was just days away from becoming a dad when a freak wave smashed him onto rocks. Critically injured, he was airlifted by an RAC Rescue Helicopter, his life hanging in the balance as his wife prepared to give birth. Hi, I'm Mandy Walsh. Welcome to RAC's Horizons podcast. And welcome, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, morning. No worries.
Take us back to Gas Bay on that day. Why did you decide to go surfing?
Oh, the surf was really good. A friend of mine and I had been checking that place off and on for the days prior because it only gets good in that particular bay every now and then when the sand builds up properly. And it hadn't been good for a few years, and then the sand got there and the surf was pumping. So, yeah, there was no questions. We were out there.
So that only happens like once or twice a year?
Or once every few years in that particular place. Yeah, the sand hadn't been good in that spot for a few years. So, yeah, everyone's pretty keen to get out there.
So you took off paddling and you looked around, and was there anything out of the ordinary to you, just in terms of the ocean or the weather conditions or anything like that?
No, it was a beautiful day. I'd been surfing for probably 3.5 hours. I was pretty tired. And typical, it was like that. I just got a really good wave and I pulled off the back and I was like, I'm just going to get one more. And it was the last one that got me, but there was nothing unusual. I mean, it's a reef break where the sand builds up on the rocks, so you're surfing down rocks. And there's a rock on the inside that has claimed a couple of people in the past, and I just took off on the wrong one, a bit more of a west swell, which hugged the rocks a bit more. And I got to my feet and took a couple of pumps to get speed along the face of the wave, and I was going quite fast, and then I sort of the wave just turned into nothing and there was just dry rock. So I knew I was going to hit, so I tried to jump off into the face of the wave, and that sucked me up and over and sort of forced me into the rocks with a lot more force than maybe if I'd just jumped straight onto them.
But at the start of the day, you're paddling out, you've got your mate with you, you're thinking it's like, it's awesome, and you were out there for a couple of hours.
Yeah, the surf was really good. It was really good. So, yeah, been surfing for quite some time, and just that old chestnut, it was the last one. I was like, I'll just get one more, and it was a big mistake. But you just don't know that those sorts of things are going to happen, It just transpired that way, and, I took a hit, and it was pretty gnarly.
So what about your friend? Because you said that you were out there with your mate, and this was like, oh my gosh!
Well, I was surfing with a few friends. I was surfing. A friend of mine, Carl, we've been surfing out there all morning. But he had actually gone. But there's pretty close knit sort of surfing community in the southwest there, and just surfing with crew that I knew pretty much all day, and all the young grommets were surfing on the inside peak, which is where they all sit, not taking off out the back, but the other ones, that picked me up and got me out of the water after Emily, who saw me go down, jumped in and dragged me up as well. So,
okay, so let's just go from that moment when you took the wave and you went, okay, well, let's just, surf back to the shore because it's going to be the end of your session, right?
That's exactly it, for sure.
And you've looked around and it was starting to get dark?
Yeah, it would have been probably a good hour before dark. What was it, 31st of March, 23. So, it was still quite light, but getting on into the evening. And, just got that last wave. It was the wrong direction swell. It hugged the rocks and just went completely dry, and I just went over and hit the inside rock. I tried to protect my head. I remember doing that vividly, putting my hands over my head to protect my head. And as I jumped into the face of the wave, it sort of rolled me, and I knew I was going to hit. I knew it. And I vividly remember hitting the rock and heard the crunch, all the bones breaking, and of course felt it as well. But just hearing the break I was just like, oh, that's not good. It's not good, and I couldn't breathe. But I was really lucky that there was a an off-duty lifeguard sitting on the rocks watching everyone surf. And she saw it happen. She jumped in, grabbed me straight away because I was trying to yell help, but I couldn't get much out because I had no air in my lungs. Rib had punctured my lung. So I just couldn't breathe. It was pretty, I can't really explain what that feels like, but so yeah, she jumped in and got my head out of the water and then called all the young grommets that were surfing the inside. So I've got 10-year-olds paddle up and try and get me out of the water. And when they finally got me to the shore, these young kids are trying to lift me up because it was a really horrible place to get out of the water. It's just rocks, reef shelf, and it's a little cove right up in the corner there, and there's a bit of a cliff down past the walkway to go around onto Geechie's Beach there. And just a terrible place to sort of try and get out of the water.
So can you explain what the grommets did? Like they
for sure.
So they all surfed in to help you.
All I really remember about those particular moments is that Emily had grabbed me. I didn't know who she was or who it was. I remember the pain and not being able to breathe is the worst thing. And then I remember all the young kids' voices saying, "F is heavy," trying to, because they had to pick me up to get me out of the water over a reef shelf. So, it was. I vividly remember some little kids saying that, "Geez, he's heavy," and then they put me down and dug like a little hole for my bum to go in the sand, so I was sort of lying still and straight because they didn't know if it was spinal or. And Emily being trained, as a lifeguard, I guess she had a fair idea of, what may or may not be going on. It was pretty.
And she was a local lifeguard, was she?
English, lovely English girl. That was the first time I met her, but since then have met her quite a bit more. So, yeah, she's amazing.
So she saw you, and
she saw me hit the rock, and she said that she heard me because I was trying to yell help as hard as I could, and I can yell like if I need to, but I couldn't get much out because I just had no air in my lungs, and but she saw it happen, so I mean she knew it was bad. She jumped in and she put me, in this special sort of a headlock, I guess, for want of a better term, that the lifeguards will use to keep someone's head up out of the water.
Oh, did she use a towel or something like that to help her, or did she use her hands?
No, her hands, yeah, for sure, in the water. And, it was. I don't remember much about the struggle to get in, apart from the fact the young kids got me after that, and then they got me up into this cove. But it was the only place they could get me to.
Yeah, because it was quite isolated, wasn't it? And it was quite sort of gnarly, hard to access.
Perfect way to put it. Just terrible place to access because it's not isolated as such. It's just the worst place possible access-wise to try and get into. Like there's a walking path right next to it, 30 metres away, but it's up 30 metres of boulders and rocks and, like clambering over giant boulders and stuff.
And you could probably be walking along that pathway and not actually see what's going on.
Yeah, well, exactly right, because it's down in the cove there. But that was the only place that they could get me out, And then the tide started coming in. So,
Well, there's another problem.
Yeah, big problem. Yeah, so
what did they do with that?
Well, they couldn't really move me because they didn't know if it was spinal or not. And it was a really hard place for the ambos to get to, so I was there for a long time. I was lying on the sand there for a long time, and a local physio, he came down. I've known him in the past, and he sat with me and calmed me down because I was freaking out,
Absolutely.
It was, like I say, I can't really explain to you what it's like to not be able to breathe. It was just trying to get as much air in your lungs as you can, but you can't. You physically can't get the air in, so and then I guess I went into a bit of shock. And
during that time, you were probably thinking of your wife who's about to give birth.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. And then my neighbour showed up down there with my wife, and got her down there to see what was going on. The local police there were there first, who were amazing as well. And good on you guys. I appreciate you coming down there, and they were great, and I had other people of support around me just trying to settle me down and do some breathing to try and get some air into my lungs, but I didn't know what was going on. I was in a bit of shock, and the local volunteer ambos showed up, which was amazing. I finally got a bit of pain relief, a bit of the green whistle, which just helped me settle down. I'll be totally honest with you, that the green whistle on that day was pretty amazing because it took the anxiety away and just because up until that point I was just like, I was struggling hard.
What was happening with the rescue service at that point?
It took quite a while for the initial services to get there because of the inaccessibility and whatnot in the area. But as soon as it was kind of ascertained that that's what needed to happen, the chopper was there real fast, and you could hear them coming, and it was a pretty good feeling when you could hear that chopper coming.
So you knew they were coming, and you were waiting, and obviously the darkness was falling.
Yep, the darkness was falling.
Was your wife there at that point?
My wife was there at that point, but that was when it was getting dark. Like the chopper showed up pretty much in that last 20 minutes of hue of light before you getting into darkness, and they got me up on the wire just as it was getting dark. So it was, it was pretty that time of night. But yeah, my wife was there. How
was she through? How was she?
I don't really remember a lot because they gave me some pretty heavy pain medication, which was absolutely required. I was in a hell of a state, and I was a mess. And I remember my wife Cam being there, but she's heavily pregnant, 9 months, like giving birth any day. So my neighbour Joshy was there with my wife Cam, and as the chopper put down on the beach, because they had to land on the beach further over, and then the paramedics came and assessed me, and then sort of got on the radio to say, look, we need to put him on the wire. We can't get in here, can't carry him out. So,
is that a hoist?
Yeah.
Yep.
So on they put you in the cradle and then take you to the wire and then winch me about 200 metres up into the air, into the chopper.
And you remember that?
I actually pretty vividly do remember one moment, just looking up at the bottom of the chopper, and by that time it was pretty much dark, and just thinking to myself, if I live through this, I'm never going to forget this moment, and I never will. I remember that vividly, like looking at the underside of the aircraft, just going, I vividly remember that. Yeah, so because I didn't know what the outcomes were going to be, and and the medication and stuff was pretty. I was off in space, mate, and it was pretty a bit of a surreal moment, I guess you could say, because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be and what life was going to be like after those moments. But I'm sitting here now with you, which I'm pretty happy about.
Absolutely,
real happy about. And I've got 2 beautiful children and a lovely wife.
So when you first got onto the helicopter, can you remember having any conversations with any of the crew?
Yeah, I do. One particular paramedic, forgive me, I cannot remember her name.
I think it might be Madeline.
Maddie, yes, Madeline, amazing woman, unreal. And she, I remember talking to her a lot. Not much of the conversation, but I remember talking to her and just her reassuring me, saying, "It's all right, mate. We're gonna help you out and get you sorted." But she was amazing. She was with me on the ground. She was coordinating the rescue, and Madeline was amazing.
I know she said at one point she was worried there could have been 2 emergencies because your heavily pregnant wife was there, and she, obviously being a very stressful situation, and she was only days off giving birth herself. So
absolutely, not the best scenario for sure. No. But I mean, what do you do? And Cam went home with Joshy, and Madeline sort of, she was. I felt 100%. Confident in Madeline because you could tell she had a lot of experience in what she does, and she controlled the situation, and even in settling my wife down when Cam was there on site with us, when Maddie first arrived. I felt comfortable as soon as Madeline was there, and because I didn't know what was happening, up until that point, being there for a few hours, and just the situation, obviously, and my injuries, and my lungs had deflated, and 8 broken ribs.
Did you have any inkling about that when you?
I knew my ribs were broken.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Have you had a broken rib?
Never had a broken rib before. Most painful thing ever. Horrible, and horrible recovery too. So yeah, you can't sneeze.
So you're in the chopper and you're about to land. Is there anything going through your mind at that point? You've got Madeline, you've got the pilot with you, you've got people around you.
Yeah, well, I did.
You're going, so they've come from Bunbury, is that right? So they've come from Bunbury?
Yeah, I think from Bunbury, and then we had to go to Royal Perth.
Yeah, Royal Perth. So do you remember landing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had to land to refuel on the way to Royal Perth. I was pretty stable by then. Maddie was like, "That's you're in a stable condition. You're fine. We got this sorted." So we refueled and then we carried on to Royal Perth. But they didn't really realise or understand the extent of my injuries, or whether they were worse than what they actually were. So for me, I remember things and I don't because of obviously the medication I was given and required at the time, but I also remember being in a state of, is my spine injured? Am I going to?
Well, that would be the big worry, I guess, as well.
That was the biggest worry for sure. I mean, I could feel my feet and stuff like that, and I knew it wasn't bad, but at the same time, I didn't know it wasn't that bad because you just don't know, do you? If you make one particularly wrong move, then you can make it all 10 times worse. So, yeah, I just didn't know. The unknown. It was the unknown that was worrying for me. And then getting to the hospital and sort of being in the ED there and
Do you remember saying goodbye to the crew?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep, I do. They got me out of the chopper, and Madeline said, "Look, you're in good hands here, mate." And I just thanked her so much for getting me there, because just getting off that beach, that was the anxiety, being on that beach for so long. I was just there for hours, once I was on that chopper with that crew, it was, I definitely felt like I was in a much safer space, like being looked after, and here we are.
And you were in the ED, and they obviously examined you, and
yeah,
what happened
for sure.
then?
X-rays and scans and all sorts of stuff, and then of course, there's not a whole lot you can do about broken ribs, but one of my ribs had punched my lung, and I had a little bit of bleeding in my chest cavity, but it wasn't really bad. The lung actually started to heal itself straight away. It was just a bit of a poke, not a major hole or anything like that. So I was pretty lucky in that respect. Realistically, for what it could have been to what it ended up being, I was quite lucky. Even though the healing journey was probably about 8 months until I was 100% and could go surf again and do all the normal things. And even my job, I'm an arborist, so my job's super physical, and I couldn't really do a lot of work for months, apart from sort of in front of a computer, and you know how fun that is sometimes. But that's all right.
But if you hadn't have been transported to the hospital as fast, what your injuries were severe. A punctured lung is
totally severe.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Can be
if it had been
critical.
any longer, I think look, who can say for sure? But the anxiety. I remember the anxiety and the shock I was going into before even the volunteers had turned up was getting pretty severe. I was starting
if you
to,
can't breathe, that's the worst feeling,
Oh,
isn't it? It's
it's
just
horrible. Yeah, I was conscious the whole time through, but I'm not sure I would have kept that up for much longer. And if things hadn't started moving forward at that point, as soon as the chopper came in, I remember hearing the chopper coming in and just thinking, thank God, they're here, and and I was in and out within sort of 20 minutes, I think. So, yeah, it was, calming, I guess. But if it had been any longer than that, I'm not sure.
Would have been a lot.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
A lot to deal with.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And
so you're in hospital, and your wife is several 100 kilometres away.
Yeah.
She obviously zoomed up to see you, in her state.
Yeah, so next day, because no one knew what was happening until the next day. By the time I got to Royal Perth, it was quite late, not really late, but reasonable time in the evening. My wife's, 9 months pregnant, so they were just at home, and they couldn't speak to me really. I was pretty much under, so I was just in the ward. And the next day, my wife and her mum drove up to see what was going on with me and figure out what was happening. And
I'm sure that would have been a very emotional reunion.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. I can't remember a whole lot about going home, to be honest. I just sort of remember I asked the doctors if I could be released because they weren't going to let me out for obvious reasons. But Cam was going to give birth, And
you didn't know when. Like if you're 10 days out, it could happen any time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up signing my own release form so I could go home. But it was just one of those times in your life where I wanted to be with my wife and my family. I knew I wasn't in danger of instant death any longer, so I was in a lot of pain. And
you probably should have still stayed in hospital.
I should have probably been in hospital, yeah, for sure.
However, you didn't, and you managed to see the birth of your daughter.
I did. And yeah, one of the greatest days of my life, which for any parent, I guess you'll totally understand. But yeah, I got to be at my daughter's birth. I think it was 8 days after the accident, which was pretty amazing. And yeah.
Do you think that was extra emotional for you because of
sure.
everything you just endured and the
and
fact
my
that you were
wife
still
as well?
there?
Cam was, I think in a lot of ways it was kind of harder on my wife, or just as hard on my wife as it was on me. I mean, I was the injured one, but at the same time, like, just all the what ifs, and that process and in that time. And then I had other stuff going on with family at home that was, pretty gnarly as well, and unexpected. So that whole time period was kind of like a bit of a blur, to be honest. And Cam, it was tough on Cam. Because I couldn't really help her out much even after Osha was born, but I was just so lucky to be there for the birth. Really, really lucky to be able to be there for the birth.
But there would have been no picking up, no being able to do much at all.
I was just lying on a mattress on the lounge floor. That's all I could do for I think the first two full weeks. I just lay on the floor, and then once I could sort of roll over, because I couldn't even roll over. I literally couldn't roll over. It was horrible. And I was trying to run a business at the same time, and that wasn't working very well. So gave my guys a couple of weeks off so I could get well enough to, even
steer the ship again.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. But that whole period was a bit of a trial, to be honest. But we got through it as you do. You just do, don't you? I mean. And
you've got little Osha Blue.
Yeah, Osha Blue.
So I was going to ask you, was that inspired by the ocean? Is her name inspired by the ocean? Or?
Absolutely. But my wife actually came up with the name, and it was, it had been, Osha was always going to be our girl. So it was pretty special. But definitely inspired by the ocean for sure. I mean,
and it became more fitting, really.
That's my place of love, yeah.
Yeah, after it nearly claimed your life, you ended up with this. Yeah, that's very lovely.
Pretty amazing, and she's a cool chick too. Yeah, she's awesome.
Now you've had another child subsequent to that as well.
Little boy, 7 weeks ago, so he's pretty cool, little Ockie. So OSHA and Oki, yeah.
Do you just pinch yourself sometimes and say, I was lying on that beach. I didn't even know what was happening.
Yeah,
and now,
absolutely.
Next minute,
And
I've got 2 kids.
Actually being here today with you guys is kind of, I haven't thought about it for quite a while because you just get on with life, don't you?
Yeah.
But being here today with you guys is sort of, if you look, I think back and think, well, it could have gone one way. It went this way, but it could have so easily gone the other. I mean, where I hit on my back was that far away from my spine. So if it had been 2.5 inches to the left, I'd probably either be dead or a quadriplegic, or you just don't know. But it went a little bit my way in respect. I just smashed all my ribs and punctured my lung, and I was pretty sick for a few months. But now I'm here and I've got 2 beautiful children. I'm a lucky man. Whereas some other people aren't so lucky, and if I understand for them too and whatnot. But looking back on it, I'm like, that's a moment in time is all that it takes for people's lives to irreversibly change. So I'm very lucky.
And you've just last year met up with the crew. You had a reunion with the crew.
I did have a reunion with the crew. That was pretty cool. That was really awesome. Really cool. Got to check out the aircraft and catch up with Maddie and the pilots and stuff like that again. And it was awesome. And of course they got to meet OSHA and Cam and that was pretty emotional. That was a pretty cool day because it reminds you as well, that, like I said just before, that one moment in time can either, either that way or this way. You just don't know. But luckily for me, I got to go and have that reunion with the crew who saved me, and all the rest of it. So pretty awesome. Did
they say anything to you that really struck a chord with you that you remembered from that reunion?
Oh, for sure. Just, just certain things throughout that time, especially when Maddie was first assessing me on the beach, like I remember her saying to me her name. Hi, my name's Madeline. You're going to be okay, mate. We're gonna sort this out. And just that instant, presence of control and trust as well. I was like, I instantly trusted her. Just the way she spoke to me. I do have memories of certain things and
did the pilot say at all when you met up about how hard it was to land, or the area that you were in, or anything like that?
Yeah, well, he
didn't land actually. He was still hovering, wasn't he?
Well, he landed on the beach around the bay because there was no way he could land where I was. It was an impossibility. So he had to go and land on the beach around the bay, and Maddie had to run over the dunes and the rock headland to get to me to communicate with the pilots that they needed to get airborne again and to hoist me up. So it was all from what I remember, it was all pretty well done. Like they knew what they were doing for sure. They're pretty amazing crew. That's a pretty cool job, really.
Oh, they would have loved meeting OSHA as well.
Yeah,
Cam,
yeah, for sure.
After everything that you had been through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it was great.
Do you have any lasting effects, or are you are you fully recovered now?
I'm pretty lucky.
Still having a few issues.
I get a little ache just along my back if I sleep a bit funny, but that's it. That's the only thing I notice. But essentially, I'm 100% healed. And I'm surfing again and climbing trees and doing all my normal things. So I'm pretty happy. Picking up kids, running around, chasing them. So, yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
Has the surf got really good at Gas Bay again that you've gone,
it has for sure.
There.
I actually haven't surfed at that place again. Not because I don't want to, just I haven't been around when it's been good again. But it has been good again. I know that. But, there's
You're not there yet?
There's plenty of good waves in the southwest, so, there's always a place to go.
And what about all your friends and the community that obviously helped you out with when you were sick?
That was actually a whole nother side to that story and scenario is the community support was pretty amazing. Like all of our friends and family and local crew in the community. I mean, we had people bringing us food and, help and coming over, just even people coming over to see you and see how you're getting on, and having that support there was amazing. And the local community was amazing, absolutely. So very grateful for that. It's pretty cool to see how your community will get behind you, when you have an accident or an injury or something happens, it's pretty cool.
You mentioned that not that long after your accident, you ended up having to fly to New Zealand.
Yeah, so that whole period of time was definitely one of those times in my life I'd rather forget. But my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer about 5 days after my injury. And he rang me up and told me while I was lying on that mattress.
And he would have been aware of your injuries at the time.
Yeah, for sure. It's just one of those funny things that life throws at you. And they say it comes in threes, and it did at that time. So a month later after the injury, I'm sort of just trying to battle to get on a plane to be able to go and see my father and spend some time with him. And he passed away 6 months later. So, it's just one of those things, isn't it? And once again, it makes me sort of reflect and be grateful that my injury healed.
That you can just live every day to the best of your ability. And,
yeah, absolutely. It's hard to remember that sometimes, it is. But, I think for sure, when you do reflect upon it, get up in the morning, even if it's a crappy rainy day outside, make the most of it and fit what you can in, because that moment in time, that, like I said earlier, it's just that one thing, isn't it? So, but life's a funny thing, isn't it? But I'm pretty stoked now, so it's all good.
And what about your friends? Do they say, "Oh my gosh, you're like the miracle man"?
It's pretty funny. Like, I've heaps of crew and margs, clients or whatnot, or whoever, like, "Oh, you're that guy that had the accident," I did have an accident, but things happen, and I'm well now, so I'm moving forward, it does. I have quite often had people, sort of hit me up about the accident, because everyone heard it, and
especially a small community
that as well. Everyone it goes around the grapevine pretty quick. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Has it? Have you changed anything that you do because of it? Like, have you changed?
No. You just keep on moving, eh? And you can't live in fear. You just got to do what you got to do. I guess I wouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't surf certain types of waves super close to rocks or reef. I don't know. Maybe I'd make a decision on the day, but it would make me think twice for sure. But not to say I wouldn't do it, but I'd definitely just have to think twice.
And now you have 2 children of your own who might want to hit the surf.
Hopefully, I'd be pretty stoked if they did want to surf. But if they don't, that's cool. I'll just help them to do what they love, I'm definitely pretty pumped to teach my kids to surf for sure.
They could have been one of those little grommets that helped you out.
Yeah, well, they could well be in the future there to help somebody, or somebody might need to help them. So it's pretty cool that in the community as a greater whole, people have that empathy and are willing to help others in moments like that, and I think 99.999% of people would. You just jump in and do what you got to do if somebody needs your help. And I think that's pretty amazing, especially with all this terrible crap that's going on in the world at the moment. We're pretty lucky where we are, so we should all kind of grasp that and hold on to it about how lucky we are.
Well, look, thanks so much for sharing your story with us today, Greg.
No, thanks for having us. It's been really great to come back and have a chat with you guys. Thanks heaps.
Thank you.
No worries.
The RAC Rescue Helicopters are funded by the state government, managed by the Department of Fire and Emergency Services and sponsored by RAC. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, let us know and share it with a friend. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next episode of RAC's Horizons podcast.